Hello people, I'm Jaby KOAY, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
Hi guys.
We're looking at SYE RAA NARASIMHA REDDY Telugu teaser starring megastar Chiranjeevi as well as Amitabh Bachchan and Vijay Sethupathi. This is produced by Ram Charan and directed by Veerendra Reddy. Let's check this out.
చరిత్ర స్మరించుకుంటుంది ఝాన్సీ లక్ష్మీబాయి చంద్రశేఖర్ ఆజాద్ భగత్ సింగ్ లాంటి ఎందరో మహనీయుల ప్రాణత్యాగాల్ని కానీ ఆ చరిత్ర పుటల్లో కనుమరుగయ్యాడు ఒక వీరుడు ఆంగ్లేయులపై తొలిసారి యుద్ధ భేరి మోగించిన రేనాటి సూర్యుడు
Who is this Narasimha Reddy?
That's what I'd like to know.
సింహోలంటాడు దొరా అతడే వాళ్ళ ధైర్యం దొరా Hunt him! రేనాటి వీరులారా చరిత్రలో మనం ఉండకపోవచ్చు కానీ చరిత్ర ఈ రోజు మనతోనే మొదలవ్వాలి
Wow.
Well, I mean, like, I'm certainly feeling the echoes of all the things we talked about last night, and with just the sheer scale of it is just crazy. Like all those people. I mean, I can't even tell the difference between extras and CGI place extras. You know, in terms of
I
the
can't.
scale of people. It just these epic battle sequences. Even though it's based on a true story, it's being turned into this sort of pseudo fantasy thing, and I actually like that. It's sort of like this legend you've heard about, you know, and that's sort of what happens when tales are passed on to your children. I don't know if the story of David and Goliath is true, but Goliath became, you know,
Huge.
you know, 100 feet tall in the stories that I was told, and you know, from when I was a kid, and David was like 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
He took a little stone and knocked out Goliath, and this is sort of the same. It's a David and Goliath story here, except in this instance, David is a freaking badass superhero.
Yeah, and Goliath is the British Empire, so.
Right. I mean, well, they're also showing the British Empire as a very formidable enemy as well. And they have one main guy there who is sort of representative of the evil empire. They showed him laying down, and he's got that look. He's got the long hair. You saw a couple of them peppered throughout who were trying to hunt down this Narasimha.
I think it looks stunning, you know, just in terms of the look of the movie, the look of the teaser. It's so pretty, like all of the aesthetic shots, like the flag waving, the color. There's something about it. And I feel like this happens a fair bit in South Indian movies. There's this sense of just focusing on the beauty of the shot that it almost looks hyper real. Does that make sense?
I think that's on purpose, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like almost, I don't know, it's like extra
surreal.
Real life. Yeah, like extra real life so that it becomes surreal.
Yeah.
You know? It's gorgeous.
Well, that's what, to me, what takes it into that status of being legendary and
Right.
Almost like Excalibur or something. Excalibur is I mean, I don't know how famous that story is. It's
King Arthur, Sword and the Stone.
Yeah, King Arthur, medieval story, but it's a fantasy story. And this in its own right is a fantasy story. What?
No, I'm like, it's true. Just kidding. I don't know.
Well, the story I grew up, Excalibur is a you know, with Merlin
it's
and all that
legend.
stuff. That's all legend. I'm trying to figure out how to contextualize this a little bit better, because the only movie I can think of is the movie that people hate when I mention.
Uh-oh.
Look, forgive me for bringing this up. I'm not saying this is like 300. I'm only mentioning 300 insofar as that's a story that is based on something true and was elevated into this very fantasy-like telling.
Right.
Because you had this one Spartan who was sharing the story about a very brave Spartan that led the troops into unwinnable battle. But because of them, they went down in history and, became legends.
Yeah.
And so this is a similar thing where, you have this one Indian guy who's like taking on the British in this unwinnable battle. But now he goes down in history as someone who's legendary, and he's doing these things that are impossible. Taking out all the fantasy stuff, just that alone is crazy. It takes someone who is willing to go on a suicide mission, essentially, in order to do something amazing for his own people. And so to me, to take that, and I use this word in a positive way, to inflate it into something that is fantastical, I actually like that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, and it's saying that, he's been lost in history because there were a lot of other freedom fighters who are more known and who in the past and in recent years have had movies made about them. It's interesting to me that they've managed to dig up someone from history that maybe no one's really heard of, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of it, because he's lesser known, is more factual and more, just made up for storytelling. But I feel like anytime you make a movie like this, there is going to be, as you say, a lot of artistic
licensing. Yeah, they have to take liberties with the
Yeah.
stories in order to tell a functional story, in order to have like your whatever, I'm sure India has its own version of a 3-act structure that it's often telling. Usually it's
Right.
actually broken up into 2 parts where you have your one part of the story before the interval, right? And so they have to figure out a way to fit this narrative into that structure.
Right.
And the movie I was just thinking of actually was The Patriot. And there's this scene that this is reminding me of, which is when Mel Gibson first takes on the British, also against the British in that movie. Awesome movie. You got to watch The Patriot if you haven't. Mel Gibson finally decides to take on the British because, one of his sons got killed. And he moves with such stealth. He moves, what is the word, deftly? Is that the word I'm looking for? He moves so quick that it looks like he's got help, but it looks like it's just him taking out a whole army of people.
Right.
And he leaves one person alive, and that one person has no idea where Mel Gibson came from and calls him the Ghost. And so it's this legend of the Ghost who is like killing off the British. I can only imagine the stories that were passed amongst the British soldiers about this guy if he was, so dangerous. You guys have to watch that movie. You got to watch The Patriot, because then you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because it's one of those things where the British had a very traditional way of fighting, and it was
Especially back in those days. Like, there was no such thing as guerrilla warfare. Everything was, we fight in straight lines, and we've established a time, and this is when we go, and it's all, very gentlemanly and honorable as far as killing can go, right?
Yeah, disrespectful or not, I personally think it was stupid. It was incredibly stupid.
Well, yeah, but that was just the style of fighting that they had known for, centuries. And then as soon as they get hit by guerrilla warfare or anything that's, remotely different, then it's just like, oh my God.
But it perfectly informs the stuffiness of the Brits. And so, to me, you take someone like this who's employing guerrilla warfare, like they stand actually a pretty strong chance.
Yeah, totally.
And so that's what you saw in The Patriot, and that's what you saw in Braveheart, and that's what you're seeing here. Braveheart's another one.
Yeah, both Mel Gibson movies, guys.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson's got a thing against the Brits.
See, he definitely does. He's a conspiracy theorist.
I like the way this looks. I love the kind of stylized action that you get here as well. That legendary action for him, He comes along with his 2 swords and he's like, pow, 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 pow.
Yeah.
Let me just flip some guys.
You got some crazy martial arts action going, and you see what they're doing with the castle. Their epic final battle of the movie. At least I assume it's the final battle of the movie.
Blowing it up.
And this is one of those things where I'm going in expecting, our main character fully to just... He's going to be martyred, basically. Someone said something in the comments about... I don't know if I should say this or not, because it's going to ruin it for you. But he does die. And the way he's put on display after he dies is much the same way they did William Wallace.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised
Yeah.
by that because that's what the British would have done to set an example. It's awful.
Yeah.
This practice of getting hung, drawn, and quartered, and then having the body distributed to different parts of the land.
That part I don't know about, but it's just that his. It's kind of like.
Ned Stark?
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. See, another very British thing to do.
Yes.
It's just like, let's behead our enemies and, set an example, but instead all you do is instill rage.
I was thinking Stark, and I'm like, wait, that's Iron Man. That's not right.
There's a lot of famous Starks in fictional history.
Yeah. This also, to me, has international appeal because I think, like, the Chinese especially really love this sort of epic scale of fighting. Because basically it's something that the Chinese can sort of relate to because they have epic war stuff like this in their movies, right? And Bahubali did amazing at the box office. I believe in China it did pretty well, right?
I don't know about
so
that.
like I feel like this has international appeal as well. I mean, just the sheer scale of it looks so amazing. Almost every other second you're seeing a shot in here that just looks so grand with into the infinity point, right? With all of these people that I can't even tell what's real and what's not. To me, it all looks real.
Yeah.
The only thing that looked questionable was, of course, the arrows, because it's flying right by the camera.
Yeah.
But outside of that, all the people look real.
I'm also really curious about the other actors that they've shown little snippets of. So we see Amitabh Bachchan. He looks like maybe he's some sort of religious type person. You got the ladies who look fantastic. Vijay Sethupathi, who I always love watching, so I'm actually quite curious and excited to see him be a part of this movie. And I just want to know how everyone else plays into the story.
Yeah, Bahubali did pretty well in China from what I'm seeing here. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that this has international appeal. I was just wondering if the Chinese had any issue with the Brits as well. And they sort of did, but not really.
I mean, yeah.
Anyway, everyone has.
We did some not so great things in China too.
Yeah.
So there you go.
You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to check out ACHARA KIRK on the social media and the jabs as well if you feel like doing that. Subscribe. Check out our other reactions, reviews, short films, and vlogs. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.